Yes, let's talk about Cézanne et moi, which is a film by Danielle Thompson, who's a French director. I think the only film that she's previously had released in the UK was 10 years ago, a comedy called Orchestra Seats. It's about Cézanne is Paul Cézanne, the famous artist, and the moi is Emile Zola, the famous writer. And the film basically explores their enduring but turbulent friendship. It begins when they meet as schoolboys in the 1850s in Aix-en-Provence, and their relationship spans until 1888, which I think was the last recorded letter that Cézanne sent to moi, Zola. And then the film gives you basically all of that, plus another 10 years on the end of separation and an attempt at reconciliation as well. Now, what should in theory be interesting about this relationship is the trajectories of the two artists in question. Cézanne came from this very well-off background that allowed him to paint. He was never successful or recognised in his own lifetime, but he became this kind of father of this whole modernist movement of painting. You know, Picasso and Matisse both paid adoring tribute to Cézanne's work. They said that he made possible what they went on to do. Zola grew up poor, on the other hand. He was the son of an Italian labourer, and he was successful and became this kind of socially climbing talent whose work was very much of its time, but didn't have that same ringing through the future effect that Cézanne's paintings did.
Yeah.
So you have this sort of bisecting of two talents and bisecting of trajectories that should be dramatically interesting. And you have two pretty good actors backing it up. Guillaume Canet, who's better known over here as Mr. Marion Cotillard, but he did a film called Tell No One.
He's a great actor.
He plays Emile Zola.
Yeah.
And Guillaume Gallienne plays, who was in the Yves Saint Laurent biopic from a few years ago. He was Pierre Berger. He plays Cézanne. And, you know, they're kind of quite beard-based performances. The passage of time is mainly shown by these kind of pieces of candy floss on her face getting, you know, bigger and greyer.
Beard girth.
But they're perfectly fine. The problem with the film, I think, is the problem that faces a lot of these films, is that when you're making a film about geniuses, why would you do that if you weren't going to try and explain where that genius came from? You know, what was it inspired by? Where did it grow from? You know, how did it manifest? How was it received at the time? And, you know, films like Mike Leigh's Mr. Turner did that perfectly.
Yeah.
Maurice Pialat's Van Gogh as well. And there's a really great one called about Edvard Munch by a director called Peter Watkins, which is absolutely an example of how this stuff should be done. When you can't engage with that, or when you try and fail, all that you're left with is biographical detail. And that's what this film is. It's just a story about two guys who are good friends, who keep falling out, they drift apart, they come together. And so for me, it just felt like an incredibly superficial engagement and a very safe engagement with two artistic talents that were anything but safe.